Why do you think about that?
So, I guess I'm glad I didn't really think about it too much, because I might have tried to like not do it, and it really was the only way that that story could be told. Yeah. I do have some oversight, you know, if it moves forward, yeah, knock on wood. My agent is really amazing, and we are executive producers, and I do have a greater degree of creative control on paper. So that I know how that would work in theory, than many authors do when they sell their rights. So I have something called treatment approval. So when the screenwriter submits their treatment before they write the full draft, if they've done something drastic, like said, I want it to be set in Thailand instead of Prague or something, I could be like, no, you know, things like that at that stage. But that, you know, again, that's on paper. I can't say I know what it would actually be like. But yeah, I do get to be involved, which is awesome but scary. And again, I just hope that there's something to be involved with at this stage. A writer. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer always. Yeah, there was a veterinarian phase. There was a those of you who are of my age or older remember Quincy, and there was a coroner phase. Didn't last very long, but crime-solving coroner, not the regular kind.
Yeah, forensic is cool.
Have you traveled to Prague and Morocco and all these places that you described so well?
I had been to Prague twice. I had been in the 90s, and then I've been again in 2004 with my husband, and we went there to research a graphic novel that we wanted to do. It would have been our second graphic novel. We ended up not doing it, but we had spent 9 days basically researching it, and it was going to be a vampire story, pre-Twilight. But then I sort of finally learned my lesson about finishing things, and I had left my first novel unfinished, and I had sort of a good motivation to finish it, which was interesting from an editor. So we left the graphic novel, but I still had all of that, you know, that trip to Prague, and so much of it made its way into this book. Wasn't planned in advance, but after that day, our first day of writing, I was trying to figure out where it would be set, and it was just perfect. It was like the perfect click for Prague. And I had not been to Morocco, but I was sort of obsessed with it at the time. There was a few blogs by expats living in Morocco, and there's this book, The Caliph's House. I can't think of the author's name right now, but he's a British guy of Afghan descent who moved to Casablanca and bought a house and restored it. He's got a few books he wrote set in Morocco, and I was just really into Morocco at the time. So I sort of wrote the Marrakesh scene without having been there, but I watched YouTube videos and read as much as I could, and it's not really a depth of knowledge that was required for writing those scenes. It was important. But then we did go, Jim and Clementine and I, we did go after Daughter Smoke and Wind was done, and I'm so glad we did, because the setting of Days of Blood and Starlight would never have manifested if we hadn't taken that trip. We did go south of Marrakesh to the Kasbahs, and sort of leading up to the Sahara Desert, and that whole area is very austere, and I don't know if I would have even thought of it really if we hadn't been to some of those Kasbahs, and the story started taking shape. And I love to travel, and I sort of jokingly think, you know, for every book, you know, let's see, where do I want to go next? And I use it as an excuse. Yeah.
So speaking of travel, so I'm actually here as a proxy for my friend Kristy, who's in Australia. She's sitting in a meeting. Casey on Twitter, did you see that? She'll like that. So I'm recording it for her. So she wants to know what she can do to get you to come out to Australia.
Oh my gosh. My Australian publisher is amazing.
Yeah?
Well, it's through my British publisher, Hodder & Stoughton, and they actually posted on my blog recently. There's a bookstore in Australia that did the most amazing display. It's in some great Australian-sounding town. I can't think of the name now, but it's one of those like outbacky sounding places. But I'd love to go there, and hopefully maybe after book 3, there will be an opportunity. But as I say, ask the publisher certainly to let the publisher know that there's an interest there. And I think the book's been doing well there, so I hope that it's something that can happen. Because
Good.
I'd really love to go. I've never been. It'd be great.
Yeah. It's fun. Thank you.
In the second book, you quote Monty Python in a section. I'm curious if you had any trouble getting, or you and your publisher had trouble getting permissions for that, or if it wasn't a problem.
No one ever brought it up as far as getting permission, so I'm not sure what the. I quoted Monty Python. There's a reference to the Holy Grail in the book. I don't know if it's anything that needs attribution or needs copyright permission or not, but no one ever seemed to worry about it. So until right now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it just falls under like fair use. I assume. But my sister and I were obsessed with Holy Grail when we were younger, and we were the knights that say me. I didn't use that quote, but it's a different part. And I'm fully aware that like most teenagers will not get the reference on their own, but I made it really easy to look it up. Like I gave the keywords, and the character's actually looking up the clip on her phone, and like the keywords she uses, so anyone can look it up easily and find. And then maybe a new generation of Holy Grail.
That's a good prize to take.
Yeah.
To get the next generation working it. I'm curious about your covers. If you got to see them ahead of time, did you have any say whatsoever? Do you like them?
I do. I love them, and I did get to see them beforehand. I don't have final say by any means, but they did really want me to like them. And I think in general, covers and titles are 100%, unless you're like Stephen King or something. They're like the province of the publisher. It's marketing, and so it's fully their say. They need to do what they feel they need to do to sell books. So my working title is actually Wishbone, which I didn't know the reason why it would be a terrible title. Can anyone guess?
The dog.
Wishbone,
the dog.
I did not know about this dog. It was like after my time as a child. And before, so I didn't know. But yeah, if you look at Wishbone on Amazon, you just get this dog. So it's a terrible, so I accepted with regret that should be the title, and the publisher came up with the title. Well, we worked together and come up with it was a long process. Titles are really hard. I mean, sometimes I've had like a title in advance, and then I like fit a story to it, and I think sometimes that works because for whatever reason the title comes to you and you're like, oh my god, this is a great answer or something. But every time I've started with a story that didn't have a title, like it's been a complete bitch to come up with a title. It's so hard. And then so with Days of Blood and Starlight, we had the something of something and something construct that we want to stick with. So it's sort of like plugging in words. And there's a line in the book that's Dust and Starlight, priestess of a sandcastle in the land of Dust and Starlight. And I gave that to them to think about, and they didn't like dust. But then we all like blood. So we kind of and it's a good juxtaposition. So I don't know what book 3 is going to be, but I've got a list of words started. Yeah. But so the covers, there was a different cover first, and the first advanced reader copy went out with a different cover that I wasn't crazy about, but they went out with it anyway because they liked it, and then they didn't get great feedback. So they went back to the drawing board and came up with this and sent out a new round of arcs. And that I really like, and then I really love the Days of Blood and Starlight cover. And that came from, they were trying some different things. But I think we all like the idea of having them fit together. And I had seen a picture on the internet that somebody had some sort of henna around their eyes in a way that was really striking, and it was a very different photo from this. But that was where that idea came from. So I gave them that idea, and they hired an artist to do it. So they have been really great to work with. And then my British covers, they're really beautiful and completely different because they're marketing almost everywhere, I guess everywhere, but in the U.S., they're marketed as adult books. They're in the adult section, and so the covers are completely different. They're like trying to not look like they're girl books or youthful books or whatever. So yeah, but then I love getting the foreign editions in the mail. It's one of my favorite things. Like I've always had this sort of part of my writer's dream is like to have a shelf of foreign editions, and so we've sold 32 editions of the series, and so when I get them in the mail occasionally, it's just some of them have the same cover. There's a lot of really different ones, and there's the Slovak version is this like bare-chested beefcake angel, which is really funny. And he's not. You can't see his face, but it's like clearly not a young guy, like not a youthful guy. It's very mature physique. Not that Akiva's young or anything, but.
Are those covers on
Anyway.
your website? Are the foreign editions on your website?
They are, if you like go, there's in like the categories in the blog world, if you click on foreign editions, there'll be a few posts. I haven't like put them all together in one post, but you'll see that on there.
I don't know if you're allowed to tell, but what's the tone of the third one?
The tone of the third one, I mean, you know, I think at the end of Days of Blood and Starlight, there's a little bit of a hint that it's sort of rising out of the trench of despair.
Okay.
But at least I hope they cooperate. But it is a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it yet. Yeah.
Kind of going along with the past two questions, I know you don't get any, like, throwing in your 2 cents on what you want the cover to be, but if you had to choose a color for the third one,
It's, yeah. I would have to say probably like gold. Because like what else could it really be, I guess? Yeah. I don't know. Gold is
angely.
but like I don't know. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends what the title is too. Interesting. Any other questions? Nobody? Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about writing a children's book? Because you have really fantastic characters. My husband loves books, and we'd like to read her daughter before.
It's funny you should say that because I came down the other day. I was upstairs and I came down and my husband Jim was reading our 3-year-old Blackbringer. And so she's been running around the house as Magpie lately, which is pretty awesome. And but the downside is that she doesn't want to brush her hair. She wants to have messy hair like Magpie. That's my first book, Blackbringer. I would love to. In fact, Jim and I have written a script for a graphic novel for younger children, and we hope to be able to do that in the future. And there's a lot of other, we'd love to collaborate. And now we read so many books to her, and it is really fun to think of, writing more books that she can read. She's a big storyteller herself, and she also is always soliciting stories. And she loves books like crazy, but she also loves stories from your brain. Can I have a story from your brain? Well, thank you so much, you guys, for coming, and I'm happy to sign books. I'm sorry we haven't been